If I had known betrayal was going to show up at my front gate wearing work boots and carrying a skimming net, I would have slammed that gate shut and thrown the key in the deep end. That hot Georgia sun was beating down heavy, and I remember standing by the sliding glass door, sipping on a glass of sweet tea, watching him pull up in that old pickup truck like he ain't got no business shining brighter than the pool water itself. My husband was gone, as usual, out on one of his late nights at the office, and me, I was just here, drowning in silence, in this big old house that felt more like a waiting room than a home. I swear, the second his boots hit my driveway, something in me stirred that I thought was long dead. A woman knows when trouble walks in her backyard, even if trouble got a smile that could charm the wings off an angel. He was young, younger than me by at least 10 years, skin smooth and dark like fresh coffee, sweat already glistening across his neck before he even pulled the cover off that pool. The way his t-shirt clung to him, wet from the heat, made me feel like the sun wasn't the only thing burning. I kept telling myself, "Girl, don't you dare stare too long. Don't you dare." But my eyes betrayed me the same way my heart had been betrayed long before. Loneliness got a sound, baby, and it's the way your own thoughts echo too loud in an empty house. Sometimes betrayal don't happen all at once. Sometimes it sneaks in slow, dripping like water off the edge of a pool tile. He asked me for the hose, voice low, respectful, but smooth enough to make me shift in my chair. And when our hands brushed for just a second, something jolted through me like lightning, and I pulled back quick, pretending I ain't feel nothing. I wanted to believe I was still a good wife, a loyal woman, but truth is, my husband had already left me long before this pool boy ever showed up. He just left his body behind like a ghost walking through my house. And when a woman's body feels abandoned, baby, it don't take much for betrayal to find an opening. If guilt had a taste, it'd be sweet like sugar and bitter like lemon, sitting on the back of your tongue, daring you to swallow. That night, when my husband came home late, smelling of perfume that damn sure wasn't mine, I laid there beside him in bed, body stiff, mind racing. He turned his back to me, like he always did, and all I could think about was the way the pool boy's eyes had lingered on mine just a few hours earlier. I hated myself for it, hated that my heart skipped for another man while my own husband slept soundless beside me. But sometimes betrayal don't start in the bed, baby. Sometimes it starts in the imagination, quiet, dangerous, unstoppable. I swear the devil wears cologne, 'cause when he showed up the second week, that scent nearly knocked the loyalty right out of me. He came strolling through the gate like he owned the place, smelling clean, sharp, not like sweat and chlorine, but like something sinful wrapped in aftershave. My hand froze on the glass of iced tea I was holding, and for a moment, I forgot where I was. Ain't no reason a man's supposed to walk into another woman's backyard looking that good, not unless he already knew the fire he was playing with. The August heat was smothering, but I promise you, the real heat was standing 5 feet from my patio, flashing me that easy grin. Loneliness will make a fool out of even the strongest woman, 'cause silence in a marriage cuts deeper than any knife. I'd been living in a house where my husband's words dried up years ago, where the only thing that moved between us was cold air and unspoken disappointments. So when the pool boy asked how I'd been, just 3 little words, it sounded sweeter than a love song. Nobody had asked me that in years, not like they meant it. His voice wrapped around me, low and warm, and for a second I let myself soaking in, like the water shimmering in that pool behind him. The way he peeled off his shirt under that sun, baby, it felt like the sky itself was daring me to sin.
He didn't strip for me, not on purpose. He was just working, sweat soaking through that tight white tee, and he tugged it off like it was nothing. But Lord have mercy, the way his chest glistened, the way muscles flexed with every pull of the net, I felt my body betraying me. My heart beat like it was trying to crawl out of my chest. I gripped the armrest of my chest so tight my knuckles went white, telling myself not to look, not to feel, but I looked anyway, and I felt everything. A woman can smell danger the same way she can smell rain before the storm, and I smelt it that day, thick as chlorine. He caught me staring. I know he did. His eyes locked with mine, steady, bold, no shame in them at all. My breath hitched, and instead of looking away, I held that stare like I was already too far gone. I tried to cover it with small talk, asking him if the pool needed more chlorine, asking if the filter was working right, but my voice shook, betraying me. He leaned on the pole, sweat dripping down his jaw, and said, "I got it under control, ma'am." The way he said ma'am didn't feel respectful. It felt like temptation, dressed up in politeness. The scariest part of betrayal is how sweet it feels before the sting. I laughed at something small he said, something silly, but it had been so long since I laughed like that, it startled me. The sound of my own joy felt foreign. My husband hadn't made me laugh in so long I forgot what it felt like to have my face ache from smiling. But here was this man, younger, freer, pouring water over his skin and shaking his head with a grin, and suddenly I remembered I wasn't invisible. I remembered I was still a woman, one with needs, one with hunger, and that memory was dangerous. Ain't the touch that betrays you first, it's the thought, the fantasy that creeps in when you alone at night. That night, I lay in bed next to my husband, the sheets stiff between us like a wall. He turned away, phone glowing in his hand, probably texting whoever it was that kept his attention when I couldn't. I closed my eyes, but I didn't see him. I saw the pool boy, sweat rolling slow, muscles pulling tight, lips curving into that knowing smile, and Lord forgive me, but my body reacted in ways my husband hadn't stirred in years. Betrayal ain't just what you do in the daylight. It's the shadows you entertain in the dark. Some betrayals don't come crashing like thunder. They slide in quiet, like the hush before the storm hits. By the third Tuesday, I was waiting for him. I fixed my hair, put on lipstick I hadn't touched in months. I told myself it was nothing, just a little pick-me-up, just a way to feel pretty again. But deep down, I knew better. Every step he took closer to that pool, every joke he cracked, every look he gave me that lingered a second too long, it was water rising slow but certain, ready to drown me. And baby, I was already ankle deep in it. The day he touched me without touching me, my whole body betrayed me before I even knew what was happening. It was a Tuesday again, hot as sin. The air so heavy it clung to my skin like sweat. I was sitting on the patio, sundress flowing round my knees, pretending to read a magazine but really watching him through my sunglasses. The way he moved was hypnotic, slow but strong, like he knew I was watching and didn't mind giving me a show. And then, out of nowhere, he glanced over his shoulder, eyes locking with mine, and smiled. Not the polite kind, but the kind that said, "I see you, and I know you see me." My heart stuttered, and I had to set that magazine down because my hands were trembling. Some betrayals begin with silence, but this one started with words that tasted sweeter than honey and burned hotter than whiskey. He walked over, water dripping from his arms, leaving trails that glistened in the sun. "You always out here watching me work," he teased, voice low and playful. I laughed too quick, too loud, trying to play it off, but my cheeks burned. "Somebody gotta make sure you don't fall in," I shot back, my words carrying more meaning than I meant for them to be. He chuckled, shaking his head, and Lord help me, that laugh wrapped itself around me like a hug I'd been starving for. In that moment, I forgot I was a wife. I forgot everything except how alive I felt. A woman don't fall all at once. She slips inch by inch until she don't realize she's already gone. He bent down, checking the filter, and when he stood, he was closer to me than he had any right to be. His arm brushed against mine as he reached for the towel I had laid out. That tiny contact sent lightning through my skin, and I swear I had to grip the edge of my chair to keep from melting right there on the patio. I told myself to move, to step back, to put some space between us, but instead I sat frozen, letting the air between us thicken with something dangerous, something I couldn't name but couldn't deny. My chest felt tight, and I heard my mama's voice in my head, preaching about vows and loyalty, about not giving the devil no foothold. But right after her voice came another, my own, tired and lonely, whispering that I deserved to be seen, to be touched, to be loved like I mattered. My husband hadn't looked at me in years. He hadn't kissed me with fire since before the ring dulled on my finger. And now, here was this man, close enough to smell the salt on his skin, close enough to make me forget the cold bed waiting inside. He leaned in, just enough for me to feel his breath on my ear when he asked if I needed help carrying anything inside. My whole body tensed, and I shook my head quick, afraid my voice would betray me. But inside, I wanted to say yes. I wanted to beg him to follow me inside, to step past the line I swore I wouldn't cross. My lips stayed shut, but my silence was loud, and he heard it. His smirk told me so. My heart was pounding so hard I was sure the whole neighborhood could hear it. A marriage don't crumble in one day. It rots slowly, and sometimes the cracks open up right under your bare feet. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror staring at myself, touching my own face like I was seeing me for the first time in years. Lipstick smudged, hair falling loose, chest still rising fast from thoughts I couldn't control. My husband was downstairs on his phone, laughing with somebody else, not even noticing I hadn't joined him for dinner. And that's when it hit me. He had already betrayed me a long time ago, with his absence, with his indifference. Maybe I wasn't the first to step outside the marriage. Maybe I was just the first to admit it. The scariest part of temptation ain't the thought of falling, it's the realization that part of you wants to. When I finally slid into bed that night, I laid there stiff as stone, back turned, staring at the wall. My husband reached for me, not in love, not in passion, but in routine, and my body recoiled before I could stop it. I closed my eyes, tears burning, because the truth was undeniable now. I wasn't aching for his touch anymore. I was aching for the pool boys. And once you start aching like that, baby, it's only a matter of time before temptation stops being temptation and turns into sin.
The first time his hands touched me, it wasn't my body that betrayed me, it was my soul. That Tuesday, the air was thick, so hot it felt like the whole backyard was holding its breath. I had told myself a dozen times I wouldn't linger outside, wouldn't tempt fate, wouldn't let my eyes wander where they shouldn't. But there I was anyway, sitting by the pool, pretending to sip lemonade while every nerve in my body hummed like a warning siren. He was bending low to check the filter again, sweat dripping slow across his chest. And the second his eyes flicked up to mine, I knew something was about to snap. Sometimes sin don't wait for permission. It just walks right in and dares you to stop it.
He stood walking over with that same slow confidence, towels slung across his shoulder. "He looked hot," he said, voice low, teasing but heavy with something underneath. I laughed, too soft, too nervous, and before I could think, he reached out and brushed a bead of sweat from my collarbone with his thumb. The world stopped. My breath caught. Every promise I'd ever made at that altar started trembling in my chest like glass about to shatter. I should have pushed him away. I should have told him to leave, but instead I leaned into his touch like I'd been starving for it my whole life. The body got a memory, and mine remembered what it felt like to be wanted before my mind could argue with it. His hand didn't move far, just lingered there against my skin, heat searing through the thin strap of my sundress. My heart was pounding so loud I could barely hear my own thoughts. He stepped closer, and the smell of chlorine mixed with sweat and cologne wrapped around me, dizzying. My lips parted, not in words, but in weakness. And when his fingers brushed my jaw, tilting my face up, it was like my body had been waiting for that exact moment. My eyes fluttered shut, betraying me before my mind even had a chance to scream, "Stop." The kiss wasn't soft, it wasn't gentle, it was fire meeting gasoline, and I was already soaked through with desire. The moment his lips touched mine, I was gone. All those years of silence, of neglect, of lying next to a man who never saw me, it all exploded out of me in that kiss. His mouth was rough, hungry, demanding, and mine gave back just as fierce. I clutched his shoulders, fingers digging in, pulling him closer, dragging him down into the chair with me. The world blurred. No vows, no guilt, just fire and water crashing together in a storm that had been building for too long. Betrayal don't always feel dirty. Sometimes it feels like salvation wrapped in sin. His hands traced my arms, my waist, every inch of me that had been untouched for years, and Lord forgive me, it felt good. It felt like being alive again after years of being buried. Every kiss, every touch, every gasp was a confession, a cry for the woman I used to be, the woman who wanted, the woman who deserved. My mind whispered shame, but my body shouted joy. And in that backyard, in the middle of the afternoon sun, I let myself fall hard. But here's the thing about falling. You never see the ground rushing up to meet you until it's too late. The gate creaked. Just a small sound, but sharp enough to slice through the haze. I froze, my lips still pressed against his, breath tangled in his. My heart stopped as fear ripped through me. Had somebody seen us? Was it the neighbor? My husband? I pushed him back quick, breathless, trembling. His eyes searched mine, wild, hungry, but I shook my head, whispering, "Not here, not like this." He nodded slow, frustration flashing across his face, but he stepped back, tugging his shirt on with a glance that promised this wasn't over. The scariest part of sin ain't getting caught. It's knowing you don't even regret it. That night, I lay in bed staring at the ceiling while my husband snored beside me, oblivious. My lips were still swollen, still tingling with the taste of betrayal, and my body still hummed like it was alive for the first time in years. Guilt sat heavy in my chest, but underneath it, deeper, was something worse. Desire. I wanted more. I wanted him again. I wanted to fall all the way, consequences be damned. And that's when I knew the line wasn't just crossed, it was gone, burned to ash under the heat of what we'd started.
The first betrayal I feared wasn't my husband finding out. It was my own reflection staring back at me, knowing damn well what I'd done. I stood in the bathroom that morning, toothbrush idle in my hand, staring at my lips in the mirror. They were still tender, still swollen with the memory of him. Every time I blinked, I saw the pool boy's face, felt the heat of his hands. I rinsed my mouth, but it wasn't guilt I was washing away. It was evidence. And Lord forgive me, but even as I tried to scrub the memory out, part of me prayed it would stay. I didn't hear my husband at first, didn't notice him leaning in the doorway watching me. And when I finally did, my heart nearly leapt out my chest. He smirked and said, "You look different." Sometimes betrayal don't scream loud at first. Sometimes it creeps out in whispers, in side eyes, in suspicions that cut sharper than knives. That whole week, my husband was different. He came home earlier,
asked more questions than he ever had before. Where you going? Who was on the phone? Why you smiling to yourself? He hadn't cared for years, and suddenly he was watching me close, like a man who finally realized he left the front door open and didn't like the draft blowing in. The problem was, the door wasn't just open, it had already been walked through. And every question he asked, every long pause before he kissed my cheek, felt like him sniffing the air for smoke while the fire was already raging. The scariest part about secrets is how easy they slip out when you think you're being careful. It happened that Thursday. I was cleaning the kitchen when my phone lit up on the counter. His name flashed across the screen. Not my husband's, but his, the pool boy. I froze. My husband was in the living room, TV blasting, but if he turned his head even once, he would have seen the way my body stiffened. My hand shot out, snatching the phone before the second ring. I hissed into the receiver, "Don't call me here." His voice came back low, husky, too soft for safety. "I can't stop thinking about you." My knees weakened. I hung up fast, but the damage was done. The sound of longing in his voice still ringing in my ears. That night at dinner, my husband stared at me too long. I could barely swallow my food, every bite sticking in my throat under the weight of his silence. Finally, he leaned back and said, "You smiling more lately. Somebody putting that light back in your eyes?" My fork clattered against the plate. He laughed, but it wasn't a warm laugh. It was sharp, cruel, like he was testing me. My hands trembled as I reached for my glass, telling myself to breathe, to keep steady. But my faith had already betrayed me. He saw it. I know he did. Sometimes the worst betrayals ain't caught with eyes. They're smelled out with instinct. Later that night, while he showered, I snuck to the backyard for air. My chest was tight, my body restless. And there he was, the pool boy, leaning against the fence like he'd been waiting. My heart leapt into my throat. "You can't be here," I whispered, panic clawing at me. But he stepped closer, his voice low. "I had to see you, just 1 minute." I shook my head, torn between fear and hunger, but before I could push him back, my husband's shadow stretched across the curtain in the window above. My stomach dropped. He was watching, or at least he could have been, and suddenly the air felt like glass ready to shatter. The truth don't always explode. Sometimes it leaks out drop by drop, drowning you slow. That next morning, my husband left early, said he had a meeting. But the way he kissed my forehead was wrong. Too soft, too slow, like he was saying goodbye to something. I stood at the door long after his car pulled away, shaken. I knew then he suspected. Maybe he didn't have proof yet, but suspicion was enough to rot the air between us. The betrayal wasn't just mine anymore. It was shared, living in the silence between us like a ghost waiting for its name to be called. Spread low, saying words he hadn't spoken to me in months. "I need you. Can't stop thinking about you." I laid there, frozen under the covers, my mind split between rage and heartbreak. Do I confront him right now? Do I wait, gather proof, play detective in my own damn marriage? The silence pressed heavy, and I knew right then I wasn't crazy. I wasn't paranoid. My man's loyalty had packed up and moved into another woman's bed. The web got tighter, and I was the fly. Instead of pulling back, Darius leaned harder into his role as the perfect husband. He started posting pictures of us online, writing long captions about my queen, my soulmate, my everything. Folks in the comments swooned, saying, "Y'all are couple goals," while I sat there choking on the truth nobody else could see. It was like he was building a stage for his lies, making me the star of a play where I was the only fool who didn't know her lines. And as I scrolled through those fake declarations of love, something inside me snapped. I refused to be his cover story any longer. The night felt heavy, thick like molasses, pressing down on me with every second I sat alone in my bedroom. My phone buzzed with unanswered calls, his name lighting up the screen over and over, but I couldn't bring myself to pick up. My chest burned like someone had set fire inside me, and the walls of this house, my house, suddenly felt too small to hold the storm brewing in my spirit. Every breath felt like a betrayal echoing through my lungs. Sometimes the truth don't cut. It carves you wide open and dares you to keep breathing. I had pieced enough together to know my man and that boy by the pool weren't just crossing boundaries. They were building a whole damn bridge out of my trust and dancing on it like I was blind. It wasn't just the sneaky glances or the sudden long silences when I stepped into the room. It was the shift in energy, the stolen looks, the late nights explained with half-baked lies. I could feel it in my bones, and it burned me alive to even admit it. The man I called mine had been sharing pieces of himself with someone else, right under my nose. Rage don't whisper. It screams loud enough to make your whole body shake. I grabbed the wine bottle on my dresser and poured too much into the glass. But it wasn't about taste. It was about drowning the ache before it drowned me. My hands trembled as I lifted it. My reflection in the mirror caught me off guard. My eyes didn't look like my own anymore. They were harder, darker, almost dangerous. That's the thing about betrayal. It rewrites your face before it even touches your lips. I sipped slow, letting the bitter liquid burn down my throat, and with every swallow I imagined screaming every secret I'd uncovered straight into his face until the wall shook. A woman can only carry so many lies before the weight breaks her spine. When he finally walked through that door, smelling like sweat and chlorine, my breath caught. His smile tried to slide across his lips like nothing was wrong, but my silence cut through it, sharp as a blade. "What's wrong, baby?" he asked, voice low, too calm for the fire building in me. I studied him, every line of his face, every muscle twitch, searching for guilt. And Lord knows it was all over him. He was holding a story in his chest, but he wasn't man enough to let it out. That's when I knew tonight wasn't about questions. Tonight would be about breaking. Love turns deadly when it's mixed with betrayal and pride. I stood up slow, letting my robe slide off my shoulders just enough to make him hesitate. He wanted to look at me the way he used to, but guilt made his eyes stumble. I whispered, "You think I'm stupid?" Every word trembling with venom. He froze, his smile crumbling like dry paper. "What you talking about?" He stuttered, voice cracking like a boy caught in the wrong house at the wrong time. I stepped closer, my finger pressing against his chest. "Don't play me. I smell the lies on you stronger than that chlorine." His silence was louder than any confession, and it shattered me deeper than words ever could. The room erupted before either one of us could blink. My voice rose, my hands shook, and every ounce of pain I'd bottled up poured out like wildfire. I screamed his name. I cursed his soul. I called out the betrayal I could feel but hadn't yet seen with my own eyes. He tried to calm me, reaching for my arm, but I shoved him back so hard he stumbled against the wall. The lies that had wrapped us tight for months were finally unraveling, and I wasn't about to let him patch them back up with weak excuses.
Sometimes the truth slips out in silence, not words. And in that silence, I saw it, the twitch in his jaw, the way his eyes shifted toward the pool outside before snapping back to me.
My heart cracked wide open. He didn't have to say it. He didn't have to confess. The guilt in his silence was louder than 1,000 words. My chest heaved as the truth punched me in the gut. He had given pieces of himself to the boy who came here to clean my pool, and he thought I would never see it. But I did. Lord knows I did. A lie don't just live, it breeds. That's what my mama used to say, and Lord, was she right. The day after the fight, Darius walked around like nothing happened, smooth-talking, kissing me on the cheek, making breakfast like he was the perfect husband. But his phone stayed glued to his hand, his eyes darting like a thief every time I moved too close. Lies ain't just words. They become movements, silences, rhythms you can feel in your bones. And my bones told me the truth. My man was sinking deeper into a double life, and he thought I was blind enough to drown with him. Every smile hid a secret. Darius bought me flowers that week, rose so red they looked like they'd been dipped in blood. He took me out to dinner, laughed like we was teenagers again, touched my hand across the table like he was falling in love for the first time. But I couldn't shake the shadows behind his eyes, the hesitation in his touch, the ghost of guilt that never let go. Sitting across from him, sipping wine, I felt like I was dining with a stranger wearing my husband's face. And when his phone buzzed under the table and he slid it away fast, that stranger smiled wider, like lies could cover the stench of betrayal. The walls started whispering back. One night I caught the faint hum of a woman's voice through his Bluetooth when he thought I was sleeping. My heart stopped mid-beat. Breaking ain't always about crying. It's about choosing to survive the wreckage. I grabbed my keys and walked past him, tears hot but my back straight. He called after me, his voice raw, desperate, but I didn't look back. Not tonight. My breaking point wasn't about falling apart. It was about finally standing tall enough to say I deserved better than a man who broke me to feed his own secrets. The night air hit me cold as I stepped outside, but it felt cleaner than the poison in that house. For the first time in weeks, I felt alive, even in my brokenness. Because sometimes you gotta let the truth burn everything down before you can rebuild. You think the storm passes, but the truth has a way of echoing long after the wind dies down. The next morning, I woke alone in the quiet house, sunlight cutting across the floor like it was highlighting every crack in my world. Darius was gone, his side of the bed untouched, sheets cold. I didn't hear the truck leave, didn't see him pack, but I knew, just knew, he had walked out not just from the bedroom, but from the life we built, leaving every lie and broken vow behind. The silence was thick, almost suffocating, but inside me, it was louder than any shouting match could have been. Betrayal leaves footprints, even when the betrayer disappears. I walked through the house, eyes catching details I'd ignored for months, the untouched laundry, the half-empty glass of wine, the pool towels folded neatly as if he'd never existed. Every little thing screamed his presence, and every little thing reminded me he had been playing a game, one I'd lost long before I kissed him by the pool. I felt rage, sorrow, and a strange relief twisting together, because sometimes knowing the truth, even when it hurts, sets you free. Sometimes the biggest shock isn't who betrayed you, it's what you discover about yourself. I glanced at my phone, half expecting a message from the pool boy, but it was empty. And for the first time, I realized the depth of my own complicity. I had let loneliness dictate desire. I had invited temptation in and let it stay too long. And yet, even as my chest tightened with guilt, I recognized something raw and powerful. I survived it. I survived him, the lies, the fire, and the fall. I wasn't perfect, but I was unbroken, and that was more than I had been a week ago. The twist of betrayal isn't always about the other person. It's about the secrets you never knew were hiding inside yourself. I walked outside to the pool, water shimmering in the afternoon sun, and there he was, the pool boy. Only he wasn't alone. Next to him stood a woman, tall, sharp-eyed, and wearing a smile that was mine to envy. They waved, perfectly casual, like nothing had happened. My stomach turned. "Wait, you know her?" I whispered to no one, heart thudding. And that's when the truth slammed me. He hadn't been betraying me with me. He'd been showing up here the same way I'd been betraying myself, running from someone else, tangled in someone else's lies, just like me. The twist of betrayal isn't always about the other person. It's about the secrets you never knew were hiding inside yourself. I laughed, bitter and full at the absurdity of it all. My husband walked out. I fell for temptation. And yet, in the grand scheme, none of it was even about the pool boy. He was just another mirror reflecting every weakness, every need, every craving I'd buried. Life had a way of twisting betrayal into a lesson too sharp to ignore. And as I let the sun hit my skin, watching the water ripple, I realized that the strongest woman in any story isn't the one who never falls. It's the one who rises when the world has already knocked her down. And sometimes, survival is the ultimate revenge. I picked up my towel and let the water lap at my toes, smiling softly. No yelling, no confrontations, no Instagram confessions. Just me reclaiming my space, my body, and my soul. The house was quiet, the lies finally exposed, and I knew I had choices I never thought I would. And somewhere, deep down, I felt the sweetest twist of all. The story wasn't over, but I was finally in control. The betrayals belonged to the past. The future, that was mine, and I intended to live it loud, proud, and untouchable. Have you ever felt completely alone in a room full of people? Like the one person who's supposed to see you doesn't even notice you anymore? That was me, trapped in a marriage that felt more like a cage than a home, until he showed up, the pool boy. And honey, what happened next? Let me tell you. So tell us, where are you watching from tonight? Drop a comment below with your city or country, and don't forget to subscribe so you never miss a chapter of love.